The Gnostics talk about something called hell in relation to these archontic manipulators, and hell means, in our translation, simulation of a virtual reality. A reality that appears real to the decoder, but is not actually real. It's a fake reality. The Gnostic texts describe reptilian entities in relation to being an expression of this archontic force, and 1,600 bloody years ago, they described grey entities, and they describe them as being expressions of the archons, and they say these grey entities are like an unformed baby or a fetus with grey skin and dark, unmoving eyes. They were around thousands of years ago. We think they're a modern phenomenon. No, this manipulation has been going on for a fantastic amount of what we call time. So, what can we ridicule? What's the latest thing to ridicule Ike for? Right, let's get a list. They must be adding to it by now. He's been talking for a while at that Wembley place. But one of the things they ridicule me for is the idea that reptilian entities are behind this manipulation of human society. And people can deny their existence if they like. I do not give a shit. They exist. And I had to bloody smile that this year, the Daily Mail has been taking the piss out of me over this for ages, like all the other buggers. And they run a perfectly straight story, headlined, "Welcome to our new lizard overlord. Studies suggest alien worlds could be full of super intelligent dinosaurs." But because it's a scientist saying it, it must be bloody true. That Ike, he left school at 15, he can't be right. Oh, bloody hell. Now, what is also interesting about these Gnostic writings is that they clearly were in many ways a blueprint for what became a lot of the biblical writings, but they were distorted. A lot of things were removed that were in the Gnostic writings. And one of the things in these texts says, "The Lord Archon," demiurge as they call it, "come, let us create a man according to our image of God and according to our likeness, that his image may become a light for us." And of course that became a similarly biblical story, but distorted. Even the History Channel has had a series, Ancient Aliens, the series, and one of those programs in that series was about all the ancient descriptions of interbreeding between humans and non-humans to create hybrid bloodlines. And this is called the genetic disk. It was found in Colombia. It is estimated to be at least 6,000 years old. And on it are depicted human sperm, human female eggs, the birth process, the whole shebang, fetuses. They knew that far back about all this stuff, because in ancient society there were high levels of awareness, not least because of these entities, but also in the pre-cataclysmic societies, and that got lost when the cataclysms brought an end to that, and people went back to basically a primitive society would actually build up again. And of course, when you talk about the so-called fall of man, it's all connected to this, the fall into a lower state of consciousness, I would suggest, then reptilian snakes seem to be involved in that. And what is also described is the genetic manipulation of the human form. Again, some people have kind of decoded this or expressed this as these entities created humans. Bollocks. No, what they did was change what already existed. It's absolutely in line with what the Gnostics talk about in terms of this archontic force. They changed what already existed, and they manipulated human genetics so we interacted with reality in a completely different way and became much more suppressed in terms of our ability to perceive reality. We no longer were the connected people of before, and we got put in these bubbles of sense of reality, which has held us in servitude ever since. And behind the institutions of banking and politics, media, religion, and all of it, are these entities through particular bloodlines that I will talk about in a second. which in the end all come back to the same force. Now, you've got to see a lot of these, because if something is a force operating through all these different areas of society, ancient and modern, then the same themes are going to come through all those different things. And they do, as I'll show very clearly as we go through in this section. Common themes, here's one: worship of the reptile. It's in our face if you look at it. The oldest known, this is mainstream anthropology and stuff, the oldest known focus of religious worship is the serpent or the snake. It goes back at least 70,000 years to the Slido Hills in Botswana, where the San people, also known as the Bushmen, say that the great python with his bag of eggs came and created humanity. There's so much symbolism to do with this stuff around the world. And this is a man called the Reverend Bathurst Dean. Obviously, he was a Christian, and he wrote a book called Worship of the Serpent, came out in 1933, and basically he did a study of worship of the serpent all over the world, and why and where it went. And this was his conclusion. It appears then that no nations were so geographically remote or so religiously discordant, but that one and only one superstitious characteristic was common to all, that the most civilized and the most barbarous bowed down with the same devotion to the same engrossing deity, and that this deity either was or was represented by the same sacred serpent. It appears also that in most, if not all, the civilized countries where the serpent was worshipped, some fable or tradition which involved his history directly or indirectly alluded to the fall of man in paradise in which the serpent was concerned. What follows then, but that the most ancient account respecting the cause and nature of this seduction must be the one from which all the rest are derived, which represent the victorious serpent, victorious over man in a state of innocence and subduing his soul in a state of sin, as he would say as a Christian, into his most abject veneration and adoration of himself. And you find reptilian entities depicted all around the world, like these are found in graves of the Ubaid people, which preceded Sumer in what is now Iraq, Mesopotamia. The Egyptians used to depict their pharaohs in the way of the cobra, with the cobra hood, the cobra belly, the cobra coming out of the third eye. The Druids used to worship a serpent god called Hu, which if you play it through, Hu-Man, it makes sense, symbolically at least. In Asia, they had the Nagas, who was said to be a people who could take either human or reptilian form. You had Kukulkan, who was the serpent focus god of the Mayan people in Central America. Of course, you've got the dragon all over Asia. You've got folk tales galore about dragons and flying dragons. And you've got the folklore and the fairy tales of princes turning from frogs into princes and stuff like that. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the Paul VI audience hall in the bloody Vatican. There's old Ben. What the bloody hell is that, right? It's supposed to be... It's called the resurrection. It's supposed to be Jesus being resurrected. Bloody change since I last saw a picture. Here then, you have the way that the ancients in Mesopotamia and Babylon and such like, they represented the serpent, not the fish gods rather, with the scales, fish god worship. And the priests of the fish god cult, like the Dagon fish god, etc., they used to wear hats like this that looked like a fish head. And I'm saying, as I've said in my books over the years, these ancient religions came through is the Roman Church and Christianity and other things. They're just the same ancient religions using different names to hide the fact that they're the same ancient religions. So there's the fish god cult of Babylon, and there's the Roman Church.